Hail YouTube, Dominions, Dumentites, and Archvillains! Thank you all for supporting me in my effort to save pop culture. And I would ask you please make sure you are still subbed, turn on your notification bell, and if you are not subscribed, please consider doing so. This channel could use your support. Thank you, and enjoy this video. Let me be clear right off the bat. Star Trek Picard was a disgrace. An SJW virtue-signaling wet dream designed to destroy yet another icon of Western civilization, undermine fan expectations, and strike a blow against that oh-so-troublesome patriarchy we hear so much about these days. The one thing it wasn't was Star Trek. There was no Star Trek in Picard, just as there was no Picard in Picard. There were eye gougings, torture, substance abuse, F-bombs, suicidal androids, magic, ship repair, a Romulan elf who brought a sword stick to a phaser fight, and a doddering apology monkey named JL. But there was no Star Trek, and there was no Picard, so Star Trek Picard is two lies disguised as a title. This weekend, an article appeared on Cinemablend titled, "What Former Star Trek Writer Ronald D. Moore Thinks of Patrick Stewart's Return in Picard." This article attempts to make the case that Ron Moore was giving Star Trek Picard his endorsement, going to great lengths with a lot of padding to do Viacom CBS's dirty work for them and try to project some kind of air of confidence about a show that caused many next-generation fans to permanently sever their ties to Star Trek in general and the character of Picard in particular. Did Cinemablend get it right? Did Ron Moore, one of the writers of the original Next Generation and the creator of the brilliant Battlestar Galactica reboot, really give his endorsement to Picard? I want to examine this article very carefully because this is important. Why is this important? Because this article could be an accurate reflection of what Ron Moore thinks about Picard, or it could be yet another attempt by the mainstream media to gaslight fans, another propaganda piece designed to demoralize critics of this travesty, to make us doubt ourselves, doubt our perception regarding what Star Trek is, a psyop designed to legitimize a defective piece of garbage as Star Trek when it is nothing of the kind, using a false appeal to authority. After all, if one of the original creators of Next Generation gives Picard his endorsement, then that kind of puts us critics of good old JL in our place, doesn't it? Kind of reinforces the narrative that we're all idiots for not recognizing Kurtzman as the torchbearer of Star Trek moving forward. Kind of makes us think we never really knew Star Trek at all. In short, this article is an assault on fandom as bad as pretending to channel Gene Roddenberry via Ouija board and having him say, "Kurtzman is right, Mikey Spock is the bestest ever," from beyond the grave, and just about as legitimate. Aside from the fact that even if Ron Moore did give Picard his endorsement, he could be getting senile, could have mad cow disease, could have been drunk at the time, could have been blackmailed, could have been suffering from some form of head trauma, could be an alternate universe Ron Moore who went into plumbing as a career with a beer gut, an ass crack sticking out of his pants, all his taste in his mouth, and all his Star Trek knowledge neatly stored in a thimble. But given the stakes involved, because I hate lies and despise attempts to make us say there are 5 lights, I want to examine exactly what Ron Moore actually said and examine exactly how the mainstream media distorts truth and propagates lies to manipulate us all into believing that up is down, crap is gold, and Star Trek Picard was good. The article by Britt Lawrence begins, "When it came to Jean-Luc Picard's first show, Star Trek The Next Generation, Ronald D. Moore played an integral role. He was a writer on the series from 1988 until the show ended in 1994. Well, as you might have imagined, Moore has thoughts on Patrick Stewart's reprisal. Asked if he has watched the new shows in the Star Trek franchise, including Picard and Discovery, Moore told Collider, quote, "I've seen them. I enjoyed Picard very much. I was invited to the premiere. That was a very good gesture that they made. I was surprised at how emotionally satisfying it was to see Patrick in that role again. It made me go, wow, this is really cool watching Jean-Luc again. The same with Brent, the same with Jonathan. It was like, wow, seeing them jump into those roles. It was really cool. So, ignoring the triumphal crowing of Cinemablend on behalf of their corporate overlords, and please note that Viacom CBS is paying for this article with an ad at the top of the screen for CBS All Access. Oh, what a giveaway! Let's break down exactly what Ron D. Moore actually said and try to identify what tone of voice he had as he said this. Asked if he had seen the new episodes of Star Trek Picard, Moore replied, "I've seen them." Wow, that's a very, very guardedly neutral statement, isn't it? I've seen them. Not, I've seen them, exclamation point. No, it's a resigned answer. A reluctant answer from a guy cornered and forced to comment and not wanting to piss off people he may have to work with in the future. I've seen them, period. Is something you say as a placeholder while you try to think of something good to say that will not be an outright lie, that will preserve your inner integrity while appearing positive enough to satisfy CBS, but with a coded message inside for fans. I've seen them is the verbal equivalent of saying, as you struggle to figure out what you can say that won't sound too critical. Like when you go to a school play for your little nephew, and he literally wets himself on stage, and afterwards his parents come up to you and say, "So did you see Timmy up there?" And you say, "I saw him." Then try to figure out how to deal with the issue of the pee pants incident. Because consider, what if someone went up to you and asked, "Have you seen Raiders of the Lost Ark?" Would you say, "I've seen it, period"? Or would you say something like, "Holy crap, wasn't that incredible?" Or, "A true classic." Or, "Have I seen it? It's only one of the greatest movies ever made"? No. I think it's safe to say, "I've seen it" was a placeholder to give Moore just a beat or two to figure out how not to say Pee Pants Picard wet the bed. So then Moore has to say something positive, and trapped on the fly, he decides to go the damning with faint praise route. He says, "I've seen him. I enjoyed Picard very much, period." Again, punctuation matters. Even Cinemablend didn't want to distort the meaning that much by giving his metered statement an exclamation point like, "I've seen it. I enjoyed Picard very much." Exclamation point. Nope. He says, "I enjoyed Picard very much, period." Care to elaborate, Mr. Moore? He does. And what he says is a coded cry for help to fans, a subtle shift to explain exactly what he's really saying in this quote. He says, quote, "I was invited to the premiere. That was a very good gesture that they made." So Ron Moore here is telling us in code that he is obligated to say something nice and constructive about Star Trek Picard because they invited him to the premiere, and he is expected, at the very least, not to say something critical or hostile in response. Moore is telling us here that politically he is beholden to some extent to CBS and is not free to voice his true opinion. He was invited to the premiere. He is under a moral, perhaps even contractual obligation, for all I know, to not bite the hand that fed him because Hollywood remembers crap like that. So, he says, "I enjoyed Picard very much. I was invited to the premiere." So basically, by putting those two phrases together, he is linking them. I enjoyed the experience of watching Picard very much because I was invited to the premiere. And what's not to like about a premiere? With its catering, perhaps gifts, open bar? Sure, the experience of a premiere is always pretty damn enjoyable, isn't it? So Moore cleverly equates enjoying Picard very much to the context of where he enjoyed Picard. Not really the same thing as endorsing the show at all, is it? And just to be damn clear about what he's saying, to make it clear he's not talking about the writing or the lore or the way they handled the character of Picard, Moore goes on to talk about the experience of watching Pee Pants Picard as opposed to how well or badly Stewart did as the character. Quote, I was surprised at how emotionally satisfying it was to see Patrick in that role again. It made me go, wow, this is really cool watching Jean-Luc again. The same with Brett, the same with Jonathan. It was like, wow, seeing them jump into these roles. It was really cool. Oh, could Ron Moore possibly say that Picard sucked any more nicely? Think about it. Basically here, he's echoing what fans have said, saying the only real thing to recommend this shit show is seeing Picard, Data, and Riker again. Just seeing them. Nothing about the writing, nothing about Star Trek is alive and well, nothing about how gratifying it was seeing his work as a writer carried forward into the next century by Kurtzman, how wonderful it was seeing Gene Roddenberry's creation treated with so much respect and love. Oh, I wish Gene had been there to see this triumph. Nah. He said, it was really cool seeing Patrick and Brent and Jonathan again. That's like saying, well, yes, Timmy peed himself on stage in the school play, but I love Timmy and it was great seeing him up there. He's my nephew. I like seeing Timmy, wet or dry. Not really saying anything at all about the quality of Timmy's performance, just saying he likes Timmy. Timmy is his nephew, and getting a picture of him in the wolf costume was worth the trip to the school cafeteria, even with the wet, matted fur. At least you can't smell that in a photograph. And, wow, it was cool is about as faint a praise as is humanly possible to give, isn't it? Wow, it was cool. Period. That's what you say about your boss's 2-hour presentation at the mandatory Monday meeting when all you got was a cup of coffee and a stale donut with coconut on it. So the most that Moore says in this article is, wow, seeing them jumping into those roles, it was really cool. No excitement. A neutral comment on a distasteful subject from a reluctant Ronald D. Moore. This is what a desperate CBS tries to characterize as an enthusiastic endorsement. The article crows after that quote. There you have it, Trekkies. You're not the only ones who found Patrick Stewart's return as a Picard gratifying on an emotional level. And Ronald D. Moore did not leave his satisfaction at only Stewart's comeback for Star Trek Picard either. Moore also cited Brett Spiner's reprisal of Data and Jonathan Frakes' Riker among those he found, quote, really cool. The fact that Ronald D. Moore spoke so highly of his experience watching Star Trek Picard is truly a testament to the non-sequel series. Not really. Not so much. I know you're trying to spin it that way, but it's just a laugh. Despite the glowing assessment by the hack writing this article, don't be gaslighted. Don't be deceived. It seems to me that Ron D. Moore still knows shit from Shinola. It seems to me Ron D. Moore is still one of us. Just more evidence that you can't rely on the mainstream media for anything but fealty to false narratives and corporate overlords who advertise on their websites. But don't blame Ron Moore. I still believe he is on our side, and I still believe that in his heart, Ron Moore knows what Star Trek really is. From the center of the earth, this is Dictor Van Doomcock bidding you all, my friends, stay angry.
Ha 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 ha.